U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has appointed Tesla CEO Elon Musk and former Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy to lead a so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Trump has said the new department will advise the administration on dismantling federal bureaucracy from outside of the government. This would mean neither Musk nor Ramaswamy would be bound by federal ethics rules. Musk celebrated the appointment on X and claimed all the department's work would be posted online for transparency. DOGE reporter Stephen Beardsley joins me now. Stephen, what can you tell us about this Department of Government Efficiency, as it's called?
Yeah, Nicole, I think we have more questions than answers on this, and I think everyone's trying to understand exactly how this will work. The first thing that comes to mind is when you say department, then that is usually something that is enacted by Congress, funded by Congress. A department head has to be nominated, so there's a whole lot that would have to happen to create a department. But my guess here is that the department is there just to provide a D for DOGE. Of course, that's a riff on Dogecoin. That's a crypto form that Elon Musk has been promoting for quite a while. So it's just part of the joke. Whether this takes the form of a task force, whether it takes the form of some sort of office within the White House, that's going to be the question. And then, in of itself, I think reducing the federal bureaucracy has been something that has found bipartisan agreement over the years. We've seen Democratic efforts to do the same, and we know that in recent years amongst conservatives, especially traditional conservatives, it's been a very important point, and that's carried over to these conservative populists, and especially to these kind of tech billionaires. They're the ones like Elon Musk who really take up this idea of the federal bureaucracy taking up too much air in the economy, but it does raise a lot of questions. How is Elon Musk going to juggle what he's doing right now with this? What accountability will he have? And of course, there's this ethics question as well. What is his company, SpaceX, among other companies, it has contracts with the federal government. So is he going to cull those who might actually take a close look at some of the contracts that he has? Is he going to cull those who might have a say over the environmental impact of some of his launches? These are very earnest questions. And the question is this going to be lost in kind of the jokiness of this? How are Americans going to look at this? Are they going to see it seriously? Is it going to be taken seriously? Right now, it seems to be a lot of fun, but it prompts a lot of questions. Yeah,
some people are, as you say, worried about a conflict of interest here. What would be the legal safeguards in place to avoid an abuse of power on Musk's side?
I think it depends on how this office department, whatever is set up. There are different ethics units sort of embedded across the U.S. government, whether it comes to the legislature, whether it comes to holding the executive to account, the Office of Governmental Ethics. There are certain problems with some of these, including the OGE, the Office of Governmental Ethics. It doesn't have a head right now, so that means it will likely be appointed by Trump himself. That's clearly a problem in the making, or could be a problem in the making. The system in the U.S. is generally set up that power is split between three different bodies: the executive, the legislature, and the Supreme Court. And you can say at first glance, all of those appear to be on the side of conservatives. Though I would say generally the Supreme Court is going to rule within the mainstream of jurisprudence, and also the divisions in the legislature are so close that it doesn't guarantee that there's just going to be a clean sweep. So you have to hope that there will be an accountability that exists in the system itself, but it does again raise questions. Who is really going to have oversight over Musk? Is it going to fall to voters in 2 years? And what damage could happen between now and then if that's the case?
Yeah, I want to get to more appointments in a second, but now that you mentioned, the balance of power and the checks and balances in the U.S., we still don't know who's going to control the House of Representatives. What's the most likely outcome at this point? What's it looking like?
We do have an idea that the Republicans they're in position to actually have control. The question is by what the margin is going to be, and it still looks like it could be close. At the end, it's going to be close. Whether it's by 1, 2 members of Congress, whatever it is, it's going to be close. And that gives more power to individual Congress members themselves to demand certain concessions when bills come through. It means that in general that the Republicans will have control of the House. They'll be able to sort of guide legislation. They'll be able to take up legislation, control what's taken up by the Congress. But that also means that these sort of more radical elements, especially on the far right, we see the Freedom Caucus, much more sort of populist congressmen within the Republican Party. They've been a bit of a headache for the more traditional members. They might have more of a say because this is going to be so close. It also means that more moderates who may want to caucus with the Democrats or go over to their side essentially on certain votes, they may be able to do that with more ease, be able to extract more concessions. But let's remember that in general with this White House, a lot of what's been promised and what he's looking at is really not going to be legislative. Maybe some of the tax cuts, extending tax cuts, that's going to have to be legislative, some border funding mechanisms. But a lot of what he's talking about includes executive orders. It includes things like pardons for the January 6th, the people who were accused there, or who were convicted, I should say. So this is a presidency that talks more about executive power than he does working through the legislature. But still, there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah. Another appointment that we know about at this point is the Secretary of Defense. What do you make of Pete Hegseth?
Yeah, Pete Hegseth is probably one of the more shocking appointments if it takes place, so nominations, I should say, and yet it's still within the realm of possibilities for Trump. It's not a surprise in one way. He's a Fox mouthpiece, Fox News mouthpiece. He's a loyalist in every sense of the word. He supports Trump through thick and thin. He said that Trump plays a role put there by God, essentially, and so he is a color commentator. He is a veteran of the Army, and so that has his connection to the military in that sense. But that doesn't really say much more. He doesn't have any experience in the military bureaucracy, in the Pentagon, and in fact he's really gone against them recently through some high-profile charges against service members accused and convicted in some cases of wrongdoing in recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So he's very much on the populist side, supporting sort of the little man soldier targeted by the big bureaucracy. It's not always that simple. Some of these men very much did wrong or very accused. There's reason to believe that they did things that were egregious, in fact, but because that's the way the environment is among conservative populists, he's gained appeal that way. He's gained appeal with Trump, and he speaks very much to that side. But huge questions about, can he manage a bureaucracy as big as the DOD? The budget is massive. It's the biggest department within the United States government, and it has a lot of meaning for preparing the U.S. military for readiness, also helping countries in need of support, such as Ukraine, things like that. So a lot of the worst case fear would be that this is going to, it's going to enact that kind of purging that Trump has so often talked about the deep state, that as well within the military bureaucracy, where in the past we've seen more generals speak up against him. We've seen civilians in higher positions within the DOD speak up against him. That's the Department of Defense. And there's going to be concerns now that those will be purged. The military generals who speak up against him will be purged, as well as higher-ranking civilians.
He's spoken openly about this.
He's spoken openly about it. He very much believes in this idea of deep state. Both Trump and Hegseth do. So, excuse me. Again, the question will be, how will he go through the nomination process? How will he go through the appointment process? Congress ultimately has a say here as well.
Yeah. Stephen Beardsley, thank you so much.